That define organization, be it an organization or a role that is all about numbers. I think diversity in its entirety, especially when you have new talent in the market, new challenges to address. I think that becomes a very critical point. With this context, let me start with Mr. Agarwal. My very, very first question about, we have seen how leadership evolves over a period of time to meet the newer demands that take place, that are shaped by the marketplace. And when it comes to evolving leadership and passing on the baton to the next generation of financial leaders, what kind of approach really helps to make the organization large scale, diverse, all inclusive? What is the approach to enable it to make it happen?
Thank you, Ruhel. It's a very interesting point, and I think culture, diversity, and inclusion as a concept, as far as India Inc. is concerned, we have not really thought as much about it as we have probably practiced from generations by ourselves. But otherwise, looking at the global scenario and how globally things have developed, and especially that global companies have also started to make significant inroads into India, this concept is gaining far more prominence and far more relevance than it probably used to have 5-10 years back. As a corporate and as a requirement for what we need to build for tomorrow, it is one of the most important requirements that we need to have a very strong and robust plan around how do we build diverse and inclusive workforce. Some of the ways in which it can be done, and it probably is getting done, at least in our organization, is, see, it has to start from the top. So the leaders and especially the board has to start with the right level of diversity and with the right level of inclusive practices, so that that percolates downwards, and that is how the bigger message eventually will get across. But more importantly, I think the best practice that I have seen is to make sure that you have equal resources available for all. You have equal voice representation for the entire workforce at all forums. You have more empathy and you have more opportunities where you can allow multiple teams, multiple geographies, multiple regions to get represented on equal footing. And it's not just about equal pay, it's more about giving the right voice, giving the equal voice to all parts of the organization, and only then you can really achieve a more diverse and inclusive workforce.
Mr. Lodha, your initial comment on evolving role of finance leaders and how the next generation can be prepared with its talent pool, skills to address those needs.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Rahul, and thank you. It's we've been discussing since morning a lot about all these different buzzwords and all these things, but actually, it's the finance is evolving a lot. Like Mr. Hoshi said in the morning, his story about taking the role of Mr. Gupta ji, or from the finance perspective, things are evolving a lot, and the leadership, as my co-panelist just said, it has to start from the tone at the top. So once the things are stated in the part of business objectives and part of the process, that we are going to do these things, and these are important things. And of course, DEI is like diversity, inclusion, and this one is sort of taking a global, it started with the global organizations first, but now it's going to every small organization. Everybody is thinking, as he said, we have to have resources available for all, equal resources available for all employees, and create a safer workplace and create a equal platform for everybody. So, somebody said in the earlier session that we are not afraid of hiring talented people than ourselves. So, and I may not be ashamed of saying that I may not know something, but I can find right person to get the job done. So that's in that perspective, this is very important and very relevant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll just top up something on the evolvement of finance in future. So uh, likewise, see, my perspective is like already we are from manual to automated processes, and now we are rapidly moving to the AI as well. So maybe in the future, most of the business processes will be on the automation, and that too on the using the AI. So now even the decision making part would also be taken care by the AI. Only the subjective decision making, where the professional judgments and the the subjective opinions of the difference of opinions may come up, that will only leave for the finance desk. So here where the future generation should also look after that, they should be kept updated with the latest technology which whatsoever coming up, and that would be the one of the biggest challenge. So maybe the conventional areas of the work practices will get closer, but the new area of practices will come. Even the internal controls would be, let's say if we have a AI or automation, the new set of controls we need to place in. So all those areas where the future generation should also look after.
Mr. Khaitan, your initial thoughts?
So I think so fundamentally what used to happen 20 years back, probably when we started on our professional journey, we saw that computers had come and people had started using. Today it's like it's a given. So I think some of the things which we talk about was the technology of today becomes yesterday as we kind of move along very, very fast. Today there is a lot more things which have come up, and as leaders, where we stand, we may not know everything, and I probably support some of the thoughts which talked about that you hire people with comes in with a better intellect. Domain expertise is what you can hire, but ultimately, managing the show or managing the whole workforce is something that you do, and you kind of build onto that. So it's very, very important to get the right kind of talent who understands what the next generation talks about. I think one of the classical things that we were talking about during our lunch was about COVID, the pandemic, and what pandemic led to changes in every business model. I come from a FMCG kind of a background. Anand obviously comes from a retail, publishing, and Maximum, sorry, on the lubricant side. So different kind of businesses are there, and all of us had different sets of learning, which we never could envisage. And I'm sure if you go back to all of you, it's the same thing which is there. The same goes for talents. The same goes for how do you build in future capability? How do you look at a different level of thought which needs to be there in the organization? And it requires a different skill set, different sets of people to come in, different age groups, and to some extent, diversity. If I was to pick up the word diversity, gender, ethnicity, race, region, all of that comes in as part of diversity and what you build in. So I think that's very important to take on and build on for the future. I think leave it with that.
Right, very valid points here. Mr. Agarwal, let me ask you, we talk about diversity and the need to evolve and take into account the sentiments of the future. At an organizational level, what strategies do you use to cultivate a culture of inclusion and diversity? And how do you ensure that your team members, and it trickles down from the boardroom to the member who is serving customers, who's front facing? How do you enable this?
Uh, it's again a very interesting thought, but I think, as I said earlier, the change begins from the top, but how well it is communicated and how well it is followed through trainings, through sometimes by force and sometimes by policy. That totally determines how successful that initiative eventually is going to become. And at least in my organization, I can share, we've put in two very clear mandates. One is around including diversity in all our hiring decisions. So whether it is people with special abilities or gender neutral hiring or region neutral hiring or different forms of hiring, we've put that as a mandate, and it across all levels. So I come from a retail company. We have more than 10,000 workforce, out of which more than 9,000 would be at the front end. And even at the front end, so typically you would imagine a retail employee would be working from 9 in the morning to at least 9 or 10 in the evening. But even there, we have mandated that we would want to have more female employees working with us. We will want to have more people with special abilities working with us. And with this collective drive, we have been able to achieve a penetration rate of almost 20% plus across our 450 stores. So it's not just happened in one day. It's happened over a period of last 3 years, last 4 years, and despite COVID, I think it was a very persistent and a very consistent mandate that the organization gave and followed through. So what I'm trying to say is, having a thought, having a policy is very good, but if you do not pursue that with passion and with perseverance, it is not going to happen.
Yeah, so just to add on, I think one very clear example from my organization. So we are actually a house of brands. We sell cosmetics. We manufacture and we sell cosmetics. So this is a private equity acquired entity about 4 years back. So when the entity got acquired by the PE partner, there were only 10 employees on a workforce of 1,500 people. So this is just to give you a dimensioning of where we stand. And we sell cosmetics, which is a typical, very, very female-oriented product. But we only had about 10 employees, of which 8 were in the field. And there were only 2 people who were besides the sales people who were there. So as an organization, when we came in, we realized gender diversity was something which we really need to propagate. It started from the top. So as part of the leadership team now, we have 40% female representation. As a part of the organization, from that 10 employees, it's now standing close to about 85, 90, largely on the sales side and a lot into the corporate, into the marketing, HR functions as well. So just to give you a dimension, the thing has to start from the top, and it has to really, it has to be part of a strategy, how you take it and make it happen. So I think the journey still continues for us. It's not stopped, but it is on.
Of course, I think it has to move beyond the boardroom conversations and has to be implemented in practice. Mr. Lodha, what is the story of Bloomsbury here? What is the story? How are you implementing a culture of inclusion and diversity in your finance teams?
So just to give you a perspective, Bloomsbury is probably the smallest organization among all the panel speakers here. We are a very young company. We are part of the UK MNC Bloomsbury Publishing. We are known for our brand Harry Potter. Probably most of the people knows about it. So we started the journey in 2012 with probably, I think, 10 people in the beginning. And slowly we built the business, and it's, in 10 years, I think we've reached to a level where we are about 45, 50 people. But then again, we have a lot of our businesses such that we have to work with a lot of freelancers and a lot of vendors, not employee per se, but even those freelancers are like more than our employees. So what we do is in this particular space, in the diversity, we keep, like, the generation part is very important. So what we do is we try to keep as mentors, the senior people as mentors, because they are actually the very good at what they do. They are very good domain experts, but then they may not be easy to approach the technology or evolve around the technology, but then they are very good at what they do, and so we try to get them as mentors. So mentoring session for the younger people. In my team, I mean, we are very small, as I said, so I don't have a very large team. But again, as my co-panelist said, we try to keep gender and, of course, region-wise these things in perspective when we hire people. And again, the generation part, as I said, the senior people, we try to keep them mentors. We try to have the sessions, and we try to know more about what they do. So across the board. So it's more of a, as since morning we are hearing, CFO is not a typical finance function anymore. He is part of the boardroom conversations. He's part of the strategy. He's part of building the business. So, I may not, when I joined publishing, that was my first publishing job. I have never worked in publishing. So when somebody asked me, like, how do you deal with it? And I said, you know what, I know what I do. Debit is a debit and credit is a credit at the end of the day. But then I would like to learn, and I don't think it's a rocket science. And it proves the fact I'm here since day one, and we are progressing well. So it's a interesting journey.
Absolutely. I think it's not just the numbers that I started when I was starting this conversation. I mean, it's a leadership role in its entirety. And in fact, diversity and inclusion is not merely a gender conversation, it's much more than that. Milind, your thoughts on how do you ensure that all your teams are aligned when you talk about gender and diversity? And the message trickles down from the boardroom to the member who's serving, who's front facing.
So I'll just give you a brief about like my organization. So we have operations in India, UAE, and Kenya. So even in UAE and Kenya, we have kept the local. We have hired the local employees, even at the critical positions, even at the higher level for the production, for even for the sales and marketing, even the financial controllers, the local accounts head. We didn't win for the like an Indian person, so we have trusted them that yeah, they have the better idea of their geography, and they can give us a better perspective. In fact, we have some of the Indians as well. We have deputed them, but they are not in the the one who has the single decision makers. So in that way, and probably in terms of gender, we have more than 50 to 60% of the employees. Recently, we did one experiment in our CFO and MD office, wherein we hired all the vacancies which were there. We hired all the females, and we have seen the drastic improvement in terms of the work environment, their productivity, and we used to call it as a Jhansi regiment, typically.
Men don't work.
Yeah. So yeah, so that is the something. And see, for the inclusion and diversity, I think someone already mentioned that should come from the top. So when we ask someone, that you are responsible for this, then so we should train them. We should give them all sort of accesses to the resources, all sort of the access to the data, so that they can be able to make the job done in the right way. That is one thing, so that when we celebrate, they include that okay, they have contributed something to this success, and when we fail, they also own it, that okay, something must have been missed out by us, that's why we could not succeed. So that environment is must, then only the as a organization as a whole we can basically grow.
And also having that, courage and that daring to try new things, like you said, an all-women team. I mean, the CFO has, of course, he has to go beyond the brief. Okay, Mr. Agrawal, if you see, tech is, of course, part of our lives. I mean, needless to say and emphasize, and with the chat GPT is coming around, of course, the finance, domain is getting disrupted. Tech is available. One, how do you leverage the tech availability and ensure that your teams are constantly learning and relearning to match the expectations that the market throws at you? And the human and tech kind of a combination, how are you dealing and navigating that part of it as well?
See, Charles Darwin had once said, "See, evolution of mankind. Only the strongest will survive." And today, strength is determined not by physical strength; it is determined by how much you are probably technologically strong. So it is not just about AI. It is about eventually AI will pave way to singularity. It will pave way to something else. But eventually, what the world is evolving into is something very different from what we started with, and we all are part of this journey. The team that I work with and the team that I will have to work with or I will work with in the future probably is also not going to be the same. And therefore, the mentorship and the kind of training or the leadership that they also require also cannot remain the same. I will also have to evolve, and I will also have to keep pace so that I can at least not just match, but at least provide the right kind of leadership that is required for the organization to grow at a faster pace. Now, coming to the relevant point in terms of how do I keep the team currently engaged and currently trained, I think it again begins from me. It does not begin from somebody else. I cannot hire a consultant or a trainer to train them on technology. I think it is a culture that I have to build, that I have been building. And fortunately, I am personally extremely techno savvy. For that matter, I am first a student of technology and then a CA. So it comes very genetically and very, naturally to me. But that is something that I have been able to imbibe in my team through my conversations. It does not come from a course. It comes from passion. It comes from learning, and it comes from giving examples. What we are talking today here probably maybe about Chat GPT, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are significantly much more powerful, weapons or tools which are yet to come, and we will have to keep evolving. It's not just about keeping pace with technology, but keeping ahead of technology. Only then you can leverage about your true potential and discover your real superpowers. So it's a constant engagement, it's a constant training, constant conversation, and you will again have to lead from the front if you want to make a difference.
I'll just add a quick point to that. Basically, as everybody said, data is not a finance privilege anymore. So it's like democratized, and the more transparent we are, the more data is available across the organization from the lowest level to the decision makers. It's making a lot of difference. So we gone are the days where you would get an email, sales report or this or that. Or you have to have the dashboard available, Power BI, this, that. So that is again a point of about technology. If you don't, then you'll be left out. Like in our organization, our CEO started 2 years ago, is to like, okay, fine, let's everybody have the access to the worldwide sales figure across the geographies to every employee. It goes to a group email, this is the sales we have done, this is the against this. So even the smallest, like India is probably very small part of our organization globally, but we started feeling like, okay, fine, you know what, something is being, and then there is a information about each geography, which is again making people really worked up. Okay, fine, this is what about talked about with all my 1,000 colleagues across the 4 geographies. So tech is at the end of the day is a very big thing.
Yeah, it becomes an existential problem, and you are led into learning, and there's no way out. Mr. Khaitan, your point.
So I think, and I did talk about pandemic, and I think obviously people evolved, people changed, but the biggest enabler to that was tech. So it was the platform, it was basically the element. So I think different sets of people actually ended up using it differently. Typically, so it was a means of communication. I'm sure all of you, hardly any of us literally sign checks today. It's all digital, it's all tech. And I think it's been in practice even before pandemic came into the picture. The audits, at what point of time did we actually think that audits could happen without the auditor sitting across face to face? But the system evolved. People actually ended up auditing, people actually ended up signing the books using tech as a medium. So this is just to showcase the power of tech, and I think what Anand did talk about, we still do not know what it is going to evolve into. We can only believe it's going to get better and better and better. So that's one part of it, which is on the tech side. The second part is, how do you as an individual evolve? How do you get your teams to evolve? Some of it, in my personal view, you actually start imposing. Some of the reports, typically people are not comfortable on, let's on an Excel. You still say, boss, this needs to be mailed. So people need to start preparing it online, sending it out. Some of the earlier practices of getting, let's say, a very basic admin approvals, now you kind of converted that into a workflow to say everything has to move digitally, online. So you impose certain decisions by which you make tech more user-friendly and further enabling, because that's how the function needs to go forward. The second, obviously, is you get tech in front of your people. It can be anything. ChatGPT, it's obviously a very, very big thing today. I'm sure use cases and the various other elements will start coming in. But the more you throw that in front of your teams, who may not be so exposed to it, you will get a better adaptability of the same. And I'm sure as times evolve, this is going to get more rapid and it will only be used more and more, unfortunately at the cost of humans, which is also the negative side of tech which is going to happen. Hopefully, work will evolve, and us and a lot of other generations will have a lot more work, because things will really, really move forward. But tech
I'm
is-
sure the humans will keep beating technology. It shows me our time is almost up, so I want to go to Milind for his final comment on leveraging technology, kind of learning and relearning, making people in your team understand new technology. How do you do that?
So recently we are moving to new ERP. So like we are migrating to SAP. So right now, since the day one, we have basically, first of all, we have communicated the changes and the benefits which are going to be there. We have included everyone, and we have assured them that we are not going to even we will not even go for the parallel implementation unless and until you all will give me a thumbs up in a UAT, that is a user acceptance testing. So the first and the foremost thing, whenever some technology comes up and whenever you throw it to your team members, first of all you need to give them a rest assurance that you will be given a better opportunities and the enough opportunities of getting trained to understand the technology, what all benefits you will get, what all redundancy of the work will be reduced, and what all new challenges might be there. So little debating and just connecting what Siddharth said, that during the COVID, we all know that we were not prepared for the work from home, or maybe for the BYOD kind of. But we did then for what we were confident, right? So we never thought that we can run the offices from home, but we did it. So I always say to my team that never ever, whether you are tech savvy, not a tech savvy, even if you are not using a smartphone, then also you can adapt to the technology. The only thing is you should be prepared, and if you are given a better opportunities of learning that, and that too, not just that you are supposed to give the approval through this and all that, but even the back processing of let's say if you are using any technology, how it works, that also we need to communicate. So if we communicate it in a better way, and if we give them a better opportunities for the trainings, and if we so here I think training and effective communications of the new technology, that would be that will play a major role.
Right. I'm sorry, gentlemen, I have to, say thank you to all of you for sharing your thoughts. Our time's up.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us here.